By the time Maya Collins entered the Blackwood Anniversary Gala, everyone in the ballroom believed they knew why her marriage had failed. Julian had been patient. Maya had been unable to give him a child. For 6 years, he had remained beside her. Now Serena Vale was carrying the son the Blackwood family wanted, and Julian was finally choosing a future over guilt. That was the story his parents repeated. It was the story the board members had heard. It was even the story Maya had believed about herself. So when Julian removed her name from the family table, seated Serena in her place, and announced their divorce before 300 guests, Maya's silence looked like shame. When he said, "I gave this marriage every chance," people believed him. When he placed a hand over Serena's pregnancy and called the baby the next Blackwood heir, people applauded. And when his attorney handed Maya a settlement requiring her never to discuss the couple's medical history, almost no one noticed the clause buried on page 19. Almost no one. Maya did. She had spent 6 years apologizing for a diagnosis she had never seen in its original form. Julian had collected both test results himself. He had chosen the doctors. He had kept the records. Whenever Maya asked questions, he said he was protecting her from more pain. Now he was offering her a house to stop asking them. Maya closed the settlement. Across the ballroom, Conrad Blackwood checked his watch. The family trust vote was scheduled for 8 the following evening. At the closing session of the 2-day anniversary celebration, at 6 the next day, St. Catherine Medical Center would begin migrating its oldest laboratory archive. Julian believed Maya would spend those hours grieving, not asking questions. What he did not know was that the legacy server still remembered every change made to the couple's reports after physician sign-off. The original machine data still existed. So did the audit trail of every manual override. Maya had no reason to suspect either one yet. She left the ballroom through a side corridor lined with photographs of Blackwood chairmen, each man standing beside a wife whose name appeared in smaller type beneath his own. At the service station near the exit, her place card rested beside a tray of unused silverware. Maya Blackwood. Someone had folded it down the middle. She picked it up. Behind her, applause rose again. Julian had returned to the microphone. His voice followed her through the corridor as he thanked Serena for giving the family hope. Elena Torres was waiting outside in the rain. She had been Maya's friend before the marriage, before the treatments, and before Maya began avoiding questions about children. Elena saw the settlement folder under Maya's arm. "He did it in there?" Maya nodded. "With Serena?" Another nod. Elena turned toward the doors. "I'm going back inside." "No. He invited you so he could humiliate you before a board vote. He invited me because he wanted witnesses." That answer stopped Elena. Through the glass, Serena stood beside Julian while one of the older Blackwood women touched her stomach. "He needed everyone to see me fail to give him something," Maya said. "Then he needed them to see that someone else had succeeded." "You knew about them?" "For 4 months." "And the baby?" "Tonight." Elena studied her. "Why are you this calm?" "Because anger required energy, and 6 years of trying to repair herself had taken nearly all of it." The first year of their marriage, Maya believed time was on their side. The second year, she began tracking appointments, temperatures, and every small change in her body. Julian attended the first consultation, held her hand in the waiting room, and asked the doctor to run every test available. The hospital called Julian later. He told Maya the results were complicated and asked her to wait until he came home. He arrived after midnight with 2 folders and a face already arranged for grief. According to the report he showed her, Maya had a severe condition that made natural conception unlikely. Julian's results, he said, were normal. Maya remembered sitting at the kitchen table while he explained her own body to her. She apologized before she had finished reading the first page. Julian held her and said none of it was her fault. Then, over the next 6 years, he found a way to make it her fault whenever he needed it to be. When injections left bruises across her stomach, he said stress made treatment harder. When she asked him to attend a follow-up, he reminded her that his work paid for the clinic. When Maya wanted a second opinion, he said more doctors would only confuse her. Julian kept every follow-up inside the same private fertility program supported by the Blackwood Foundation. Each clinician inherited the altered diagnosis as Maya's established baseline, while Julian insisted that repeating the original couple-level evaluation would waste time, money, and what remained of her strength. He kept every original report in a locked drawer. He handled the insurance forms. He spoke to the clinic when medication changed. He said he was carrying the administrative burden because she was carrying enough. At first, that sounded like love. Later, it sounded like a door closing. The third year, Maya declined a promotion because the travel schedule conflicted with treatment. The fourth, she stopped visiting her parents because she could not bear their careful questions. The fifth, Julian attended family events alone and told people Maya was recovering. The sixth, Serena started visiting the house. She brought soup after procedures and listened while Maya admitted how guilty she felt for keeping Julian from fatherhood. Serena knew every private wound before she stepped into Maya's chair. Elena drove Maya to her parents' home instead of the apartment Julian had already emptied for her. Helen Collins opened the door in her robe. Robert arrived from his office upstairs 10 minutes later. Maya had not told them about the latest treatment or Serena's pregnancy. By the time she finished, her mother's tea had gone cold. Robert read the confidentiality clause twice. Why does he care whether you discuss medical records after the divorce? He says he wants privacy for the baby. This clause covers records created before Serena was pregnant. Maya had noticed it in the ballroom without understanding what it meant. Helen sat beside her. Do you still have your old reports? Copies.
I only have
Julian
copies.
kept the
originals
originals.
are locked away.
Why? He handled the insurance. Robert did not accuse Julian. Who gave you the diagnosis? Maya tried to remember. The doctor had discussed treatment options later, but Julian had already told her the results before that appointment. Maya entered the room believing she knew what was wrong. Every question she asked had been shaped by his answer. Elena called Dr. Marcus Hale from the hallway. Marcus was a reproductive specialist she had known since college, careful enough to refuse conclusions over the phone. He agreed to see Maya the following morning. Maya almost declined. Whatever the truth had been 6 years earlier, no test could return the time she had lost. Then Elena asked, "Do you want another child someday? Or do you only want to keep believing what Julian told you?" For years, every decision about Maya's body had passed through Julian first. The appointments, the prescriptions, the reports, even the language she used to describe herself. She went upstairs to the bedroom that had once been hers and opened a storage box her mother had kept after the wedding. Beneath old photographs and medication receipts lay the copy of the first fertility report Julian had given her. The paper had yellowed along the edges. Maya sat on the floor and read every line. The diagnosis and patient code were there. So was Julian's handwritten note. "We will get through this." At the bottom of the final page was a line she did not remember seeing. "Results released to spouse by authorized request." Maya read it again. She had never authorized Julian to receive her results alone. Downstairs, the grandfather clock struck midnight. Maya placed the report inside the white settlement folder and closed it over the unsigned divorce papers. 6 years earlier, Julian had told her the hardest question had already been answered. Now she understood that no one had ever allowed her to ask it herself. At 9 the next morning, Maya sat across from Dr. Marcus Hale with the old report on the desk between them. He had completed the examination, reviewed her current blood work, and asked the same questions twice in different ways, not because he doubted her, but because he was separating 6 years of treatment from whatever had existed before it. Marcus did not touch the report at first. "Tell me what you were told," he said. Maya looked at the diagnosis Julian had repeated so often that it no longer sounded medical. It sounded like a verdict. That my ovarian reserve was critically low. That natural conception was almost impossible. That every month mattered. "Who told you?" "My husband." "And the physician?" She discussed treatment options later. Marcus picked up the report and compared it with the results on his screen. Elena sat beside Maya near the window. She had promised not to interrupt unless Maya asked. Marcus tapped one line with his pen. Your current results do not show the pattern I would expect after 6 years of the condition described here. Could treatment have changed it? Some values change. Age changes them. Medication can influence individual readings. He paused. But this report describes a severe, persistent problem. Your present examination does not fit that history cleanly. He turned the document around. The report carried a patient identification number, a specimen number, and a printed time near the bottom. 11:11 p.m. Maya remembered Julian calling her from the hospital parking garage before 9. He had said the results were already clear. Marcus asked, "When did he speak to you?" "A little before 9. The report was not generated until more than 2 hours later. Maybe the doctor told him verbally." "Possible." He accused no one. That restraint made the discrepancy harder to dismiss. Marcus asked whether Maya had ever received the raw laboratory values, the physician's signed interpretation, or the consent allowing Julian to collect her records separately. She had none of them. "What exactly are you saying?" Maya asked. "I cannot confirm that this copy accurately represents the testing performed 6 years ago." The sentence was careful. It still changed the weight of the room. For years, Maya had treated every line beneath her name as proof that her body had failed a test she did not understand. Now a doctor was telling her the paper might be the unreliable thing. Marcus ordered additional blood work and imaging, then wrote a formal request for the original laboratory data from St. Catherine Medical Center. Before Maya left, he stopped her. "Do not make conclusions from one appointment, but do not let anyone tell you this question is unreasonable." By 11:30, the first new results were available. They were not perfect. Maya was 32 now, and 6 years of medication had left questions that required follow-up, but the central finding was unmistakable. There was no evidence that she had ever suffered the severe condition described in the old report. Elena read the summary once, then pressed her lips together. Maya felt no relief. Relief would have required the lost years to return with the corrected numbers. Instead, she remembered Julian holding her after another failed treatment and saying, "We both knew this might happen." At the time, she thought he was sharing the grief. Now she wondered how much of it he had known was unnecessary. Marcus's office sent the request to St. Catherine at 11:47. At 12:06, the hospital replied that the archived file could not be released through the normal portal because it had been migrated twice and contained a restricted access flag. Maya called the records department herself. The first employee transferred her. The second asked for the date of service. The third returned with a different tone. "Mrs. Blackwood, our system shows that the results were released to your authorized representative. I never appointed one. I can only tell you what the record says." "Who was the representative?" Another hold. When the employee returned, she spoke more slowly. "Julian Blackwood." Maya turned toward Elena. "I want the authorization form. We would need compliance approval. I also want the original machine data, every access log, and the signed physician report. That may take several business days." Maya thought of the settlement clause and the vote scheduled for 8. Elena, checking St. Catherine's public notices, turned her phone around. The hospital was migrating its oldest laboratory archive that evening. The conversion window began at 6. Maya returned to the call. "Place a preservation hold on my file. I'm not authorized to do that. Then connect me to someone who is." A notification appeared in Maya's email while she waited. St. Catherine had acknowledged her request, but one sentence stood out. "Certain legacy system records may become unavailable during scheduled migration." Julian had spent 6 years making sure every answer reached him before it reached her. Now the first answer Maya had requested for herself was inside a system scheduled to close in less than 6 hours. When the compliance office finally answered, Maya did not ask whether the hospital could find her file. She asked them to make sure no one touched it. By 1:30, Maya was sitting in a conference room at St. Catherine Medical Center with both of her parents beside her. Robert Collins had brought a lawyer from his firm. Helen had brought the old medication receipts Maya left in a storage box years ago. Neither parent spoke while they waited. The silence between them was not accusation. It was the weight of discovering how much pain Maya had hidden to protect everyone from worrying about her. Naomi Bell entered with a tablet, a legal pad, and the expression of someone who expected every sentence in the room to become evidence. She introduced herself as the hospital's director of compliance. "I reviewed the preservation request," Naomi said. "I also reviewed the notice from Dr. Hale's office." "Then you know the diagnosis does not match her current condition," Robert replied. "I know there is a discrepancy. I do not yet know why." Robert slid a formal letter across the table. "This is a demand to preserve every version of my daughter's laboratory records, including raw machine output, access logs, signed interpretations, scanned consent forms, and communications concerning release of results." Naomi read the first page without touching the attachments. "The hospital will preserve what it can identify." What it can identify? These records have passed through 2 software conversions. Some files were indexed under legacy numbers. Releasing unverified material now could create a second problem. Helen leaned forward. "A second problem? If I hand your daughter a document with an incomplete chain of custody, opposing counsel can argue that it was altered during migration, exported incorrectly, or connected to the wrong patient." "Maya is not opposing anyone," Helen said. Naomi's eyes moved briefly to the white settlement folder on the table. "Not yet." Robert heard the warning in that answer. "Blackwood Family Foundation is one of this hospital's largest donors." "It is. And Julian Blackwood may control that foundation after tonight." "That is also true. So forgive me if delay does not look neutral." Naomi set the letter down. Neutrality does not mean moving quickly enough to satisfy the person applying pressure. It means making sure the evidence survives the pressure. Maya had expected defensiveness. Naomi's precision unsettled her more. "Can you tell me whether my husband was authorized to receive my results?" Maya asked. "The active record says he was." "I did not authorize it." "Then I need the original form." "Do you have it?" "I have a scanned reference to it." "I do not have a verified original." Robert's lawyer asked whether the reference included a signature image. Naomi said it did not. Helen opened the envelope of receipts and placed them in date order. "These were the medications prescribed after that report. My daughter took them for years. If the report was wrong, this is not a filing issue." Naomi looked at Maya. "Were both you and your husband tested on the same day?" "Yes." "Did he collect both reports himself?" Maya remembered Julian arriving home with 2 folders and grief already prepared on his face. "He said the hospital called him because I was too upset." "Did a physician speak to you before he did?" "No." Naomi wrote something down. "Did you ever see his original report?" "Only the page he showed me." "Do you still have it?" "No." "He kept the originals." Naomi closed the legal pad. "I am not refusing your request. I am refusing to release a file before I know whether the file is what it claims to be." Robert stood. "The migration begins at 6. I know. If anything disappears, it will not disappear because your letter frightened us," Naomi said. "It will survive because we preserve it correctly." The meeting ended without Maya receiving a single page. In the hallway, Robert called the hospital's general counsel. Helen asked Maya why she had never told them how often she went through treatment alone. Maya had no answer that did not sound like another apology. Inside the conference room, Naomi waited until the door closed. Then she reopened the file. The access history showed Julian Blackwood had been listed as recipient for both reports. The physician's signatures had been entered at 8:52 p.m. The final PDFs had been generated after 11. Between those times, key result fields and diagnostic summaries in both reports had been overwritten manually. Naomi called information security. "I need the legacy fertility server isolated before migration." The technician hesitated. "That will delay the conversion." "Do it without announcing the reason." She next called records management. "Remove Harold Pike from every deletion queue connected to the old laboratory archive." Another pause. Harold approved the purge list. "That is why I am removing him." At 2:18, Naomi received a copy of the audit log. One line held her attention. At 11:43 p.m., 6 years earlier, Harold Pike's account had reopened both finalized fertility reports, suppressed the original interpretations, overwritten key result fields, and exported replacement PDFs. Naomi compared the names attached to the original specimen numbers. One was Maya Collins. The other was Julian Blackwood. She saved the log to an encrypted evidence folder, printed a checksum receipt, and called hospital counsel again. This time, she did not describe the matter as a records request. She called it a suspected internal alteration. At 2:41 p.m., Maya received the revised divorce agreement. The subject line read, "Final private resolution." The house in Harbor Point would be transferred to her free of debt. She would receive a large lump sum payment, continued medical coverage, and full ownership of their shared investment account. The offer was so generous that Robert read it twice, checking for hidden debt, transfer conditions, or language that might return the property to Blackwood control. Helen did not. What does he want? Maya turned to page 19. She would be prohibited from requesting, discussing, auditing, or disclosing any fertility records created during the marriage. She could not contact former physicians, laboratory staff, insurers, or members of the Blackwood family about reproductive testing. She also had to agree never to question the paternity of Serena's child. Elena read over her shoulder. He knows. Robert looked up. We do not know how much. He knows enough to write this. At 2:48, Julian called. Maya let it ring. A message followed. I am trying to give you a clean exit. Do not let your father turn this into a war, then another. If you attack Serena or the baby, I will protect them. He was already building the next version of events. Not a husband hiding evidence, but a father defending a pregnant woman from a bitter ex-wife. The speed of it told Maya the story had been prepared before she ever called the hospital. At 3:05, the gate camera showed Julian's car. His attorney remained inside while Julian came to the door carrying a leather folder. Helen wanted him turned away. Maya said no. I need to hear what he thinks I will accept. Julian entered in a charcoal suit, the formal tie from the previous night gone. His eyes found the old report on the coffee table. You went back to Street Catherine. Maya remained seated. You learned that quickly. The hospital contacted the family foundation about your father's preservation demand. Why would my records concern the foundation? Because he threatened an institution we support. Robert stepped forward. I requested that evidence not be destroyed. Julian ignored him and placed the folder beside the unsigned settlement. You keep the house and the payment. I will add lifetime coverage for any future treatment. This can end privately. For 6 years, Julian had described every expense related to Maya's body as a burden he carried out of love. Now he was pricing her silence with the same language. What are you asking me to protect? She asked. Our privacy. The clause covers records from 6 years before Serena became pregnant. This family has enemies. An old medical dispute can be distorted. Then the original file should protect you. It may not be reliable after 2 system conversions. The answer came too quickly. You have already asked about the old system. I have counsel. Did counsel tell you my file was flagged? Julian did not answer. Did you receive both reports before I did? You signed the authorization. I asked the hospital for it. You signed dozens of documents during treatment. Then you should not need me to stop looking. His expression changed not to fear, but irritation. You are doing this because I left. No. I am doing it because you asked me to surrender records you say are harmless. You want to punish Serena. I have not contacted her. You embarrassed her last night. You seated her in my place and announced my diagnosis to 300 people. I told the truth as we understood it. Then let the hospital confirm it. Julian opened the new folder. The agreement now carried a deadline. Maya had until 4:30 p.m. to sign. After that, Julian reserved the right to seek an injunction preventing her from contacting Serena, the Blackwood trustees, or hospital employees. Robert's lawyer took the document. This attempts to interfere with a preservation inquiry. It stops harassment. Maya stood. I do not want your house. I do not want your money or your family's insurance. I want the original report, the authorization form, and the record of every person who opened that file. You are making a mistake. I made the mistake 6 years ago when I let you read my body before I did. The sentence struck somewhere Julian could not hide. If you continue, he said, every private detail of your treatment may become public. Your parents will hear things you never told them. The board will hear them. Is that what you want? Maya looked at the medicine receipts her mother had placed in date order. Shame had kept her quiet for 6 years. Julian was betting it would work for 6 more hours. I want the record preserved. He left without taking the agreement. At 3:32, Naomi called. Harold Pike submitted a deletion request for legacy files marked corrupted and non-essential. Is mine included? Yes. Can you stop it? I can challenge it. I cannot yet prove who instructed him. When does deletion begin? The migration queue locks at 4. The purge starts at 6. Maya looked at Julian's 4:30 deadline. He had given her 30 minutes after the queue became harder to change. The offer had never been generous. It was a countdown. At 4:12 p.m., Maya called Conrad Blackwood directly. She expected an assistant. Conrad answered on the 3rd ring. I was told you might contact me, he said. His tone carried the patience of a man accustomed to letting others reveal too much. I need the succession vote delayed. On what grounds? Julian may have altered medical records 6 years ago and is now trying to destroy the underlying data. A door closed on Conrad's end. Do you have proof? Not enough yet. The hospital found irregularities and placed part of the archive under review. Then you have suspicion. I have a report that does not match my current examination, a missing authorization, a confidentiality agreement Julian wrote before the hospital finished its review, and a deletion request tied to the same records. That is not proof he ordered anything. No. The honesty cost her leverage, but exaggeration would have cost more. Why should a family trust vote stop over a private medical dispute? Conrad asked. Because Julian used that dispute to build the case for his leadership. For 6 years, Julian had attended Blackwood gatherings alone and explained Maya's absence with the same careful language. She was recovering. She was fragile. She had asked for privacy. Each sentence made him look protective. Each absence made Maya look ashamed. Edward praised his son for remaining loyal when other men would have left. At board retreats, Julian spoke about sacrifice as if marriage had trained him for leadership. Maya had once been grateful he defended her. Now she understood that he had been writing a resume. He turned my diagnosis into evidence of his character, she said. Tonight he used Serena's pregnancy as evidence that I was the problem. Conrad's voice hardened. Are you questioning the child? I am questioning why Julian needed the child discussed before the vote. Does the trust require a male heir? No. Does the next chairman have to be a father? No. Then why was Serena's pregnancy part of his announcement? Conrad did not answer. Julian feared you would remove him if he could not continue the family line, Maya said. Did you ever tell him that? No. The answer shifted something. Julian had spent 6 years protecting himself from a punishment that may never have existed. Maya had suffered it anyway. Conrad asked for the hospital's findings. Maya explained that Naomi would not release anything until the chain of custody was secured. You trust her? I thought she was protecting your family. Now I think she is protecting the evidence from all of us. Conrad said the vote would remain scheduled for 8. Maya closed her eyes. You have until 7:45 to bring me authenticated evidence. The vote remains at 8. Before ending the call, Conrad added, Julian's medical condition, whatever it is not a succession issue. Maya looked at the folded place card beside her bag. It was never supposed to be. At 4:31, Edward Blackwood entered Street Catherine through the executive entrance. Naomi learned he was there when the hospital president called her upstairs. Edward sat beside the president's desk, already dressed for the evening vote in a black dinner jacket. This concerns a distressed woman in the middle of a divorce, he said. It should not become an institutional crisis. Naomi placed the preservation notice on the table. It became institutional when a completed laboratory report was changed after physician sign-off. You are not certain that happened. I am certain both finalized reports were reopened and their diagnostic summaries were overwritten. I am verifying who authorized it. The Blackwood Foundation has supported this hospital for 23 years. Naomi did not thank him. I am asking for restraint until the family resolves its dispute, Edward said. The relevant files were marked for deletion before the patient requested review. That may be routine. It was not. The hospital president shifted in his chair, hoping neither person would force him to choose. Naomi chose for him. She opened her tablet and initiated a formal compliance investigation. The status beside Maya's file changed from restricted inquiry to protected evidence. Edward saw the screen. You understand what this could cost the hospital. Naomi signed the order. I understand what losing the file could cost the patient. At 4:46, Maya received Naomi's message. The hospital had opened an internal investigation. The records were under legal hold, though no findings were ready for release. Conrad's office then sent the family trust provisions governing succession. Maya read the section on fiduciary conduct. Robert watched her read it. So the rule he claimed to fear was never there, he said. No, Maya replied. But once he made me carry the shame, everyone rewarded him for carrying me. She saved the provisions beside Julian's settlement. One document described the man the trust required. The other showed how far Julian had moved from it. Dishonesty, concealment, misuse of institutional influence, and conduct exposing the trust to material risk could disqualify a nominee. There was no requirement for a son. There was no requirement for a child. Julian had not destroyed Maya to satisfy an old family rule. He had destroyed her to protect himself from a judgment he had imagined and then used her suffering to prove he deserved power. At the hospital, Naomi received an alert from the isolated server. Someone using Harold Pike's credentials had tried to restore access to the deletion queue. The request came from outside the hospital network. The device identifier belonged to Blackwood Group. At 5:07 p.m., Naomi asked Maya to return to Street Catherine. This time, the conference room door was locked before anyone sat down. Naomi had brought hospital counsel, an information security analyst named Priya Shah, and 2 sealed evidence bags. Robert and Helen sat beside Maya. Elena remained near the wall with the white settlement folder. Naomi placed a checksum receipt on the table. The legacy server is isolated, she said. Nothing in this room has been released outside the investigation. Maya looked at the evidence bags. Did you find the original reports? We found the machine output. Priya opened a laptop disconnected from the hospital's active network. On the screen were 2 specimen records from 6 years earlier, each tied to a bar-coded sample and patient number. Naomi pointed to the first. This specimen belongs to you. The values were not identical to Maya's current results, but they did not support the severe diagnosis she had carried for 6 years. The second record belonged to Julian. Maya read the finding twice. Azoospermia. She knew the term because Marcus had explained that it could prevent conception without affecting general health or sexual function. Naomi did not soften the explanation. The original data indicates that your husband's sample contained no measurable sperm. Your sample did not show the condition listed in the report you received. Helen covered her mouth. Robert stared at the screen, as if anger could force the lost years back into order. Maya felt neither vindication nor surprise. She remembered Julian at the kitchen table, turning the report toward her and tracing the diagnosis with one finger. She remembered apologizing before she understood the words. She remembered thanking him for staying. The memory did not break. It rearranged itself. Every kindness Julian had offered now carried a second meaning, and none of them felt accidental. Naomi continued. At 8:52 p.m., the physician signed both interpretations. At 9:04, Julian Blackwood's office received confirmation that the results were complete. At 11:43, Harold Pike's account reopened both files. Priya displayed the audit trail. Both finalized reports had been altered after physician sign-off. The original interpretations had been suppressed, key result fields overwritten, and replacement PDFs exported under the existing patient profiles. Maya leaned closer. Could Harold have done that by mistake? Not in one action, Priya said. He opened each finalized report, cleared the original diagnostic summary, entered replacement findings, confirmed multiple override warnings, and exported new copies. Robert asked, "Who requested access?" Naomi slid a printed email across the table. The message came from Julian's executive assistant. "Release both reports directly to Mr. Blackwood. His wife is not to be contacted until further instruction." Below it was Harold's confirmation that Mr. Blackwood would receive the material privately. The timestamp was 8:37 p.m. Julian had arranged to control the results before the physician signed them. Maya looked down at the old copy. The handwritten note remained in the margin. "We will get through this." He had written it after deciding what she would be allowed to know. "There is more," Robert said. He opened a folder from his financial investigator. A dormant consulting company controlled by Julian had transferred $25,000 to Harold 3 days after the reports were changed. The invoice described the payment as records modernization advice. Harold had never worked as a consultant. Naomi placed the invoice beside the audit log. Together, the documents no longer looked like a clerical error. They looked like a purchase. The amount was less than 1 year of Maya's treatment. Maya asked, "Is this enough?" "Enough to establish suspected alteration and preserve the evidence," Naomi said. "Not enough to explain every participant's intent. Harold has not been interviewed. We still need to authenticate the email archive and identify who controlled the device that tried to reopen the deletion queue, so Julian can still deny it. He can deny anything. The question is whether the record survives his denial." At 5:24, Maya's phone began vibrating. A video from the gala had been posted online. The clip began after Julian removed her place card. It omitted his announcement about her diagnosis and cut directly to Maya asking what the hospital had told them 6 years earlier. The next edit made her question sound like a threat. Then came a close shot of Serena holding her stomach while security moved toward Maya. The caption read, "Bitter wife disrupts Blackwood Air announcement." Within minutes, Julian released a statement claiming Maya was using private medical history to harass a pregnant woman and sabotage a family vote. Helen reached for Maya's phone. "Do not read the comments." Maya set it face down. Julian had lost control of the medical record, so he was trying to control what the record meant. Elena asked whether they should release the machine data immediately. "No," Maya said. If she posted the result in anger, Julian would say she had exposed private medical information to humiliate him. He would turn his condition into the story and bury what he had done to hers. Maya looked at Naomi. "What do we still need?" "Harold, the device record, full authentication of the backups, and proof that the deletion attempt was connected to Julian rather than someone protecting him without his knowledge." "Then that is what we find." Priya's laptop sounded an alert. A camera near the employee parking lot had captured Harold leaving the hospital 20 minutes earlier. He carried a portable drive and entered a black sedan registered to Blackwood Strategic Services. Naomi checked the isolated server. One archive copy was missing. Harold had taken it. At 5:31, Maya held the report proving her body had never failed in the way Julian claimed. But the man who had betrayed her was already driving away with the evidence that could prove why. At 5:36 p.m., Julian called Harold Pike from a private office behind the ballroom. He did not ask why Harold had left the hospital. He asked whether the drive was complete. Harold sat in the back of the Blackwood sedan with the portable archive on his knees. "It has the export logs," he said. "The machine records too. And the server copy?" Naomi isolated part of it. "I could not reach everything." Julian looked through the glass wall toward the gala floor. Staff were resetting the stage for the succession vote. Serena stood near the head table while photographers waited. "Destroy the drive," Julian said. Harold swallowed. "You told me to preserve it. I told you to remove it from the hospital. There is a difference. There will not be once it is gone." Harold lowered his voice. "They found the payment. They found the audit trail. Julian said nothing. If I delete this now, they will say I knew what I was hiding. You did know. The words came without anger. I changed the files because you told me to. You changed them using your credentials. You paid me. For systems consulting. 6 years earlier, $25,000 had felt like rescue. Harold's wife needed surgery, and Julian had promised the change would remain private. Now Harold understood the promise had been designed to leave him alone with the crime. What happens if I cooperate? He asked. You lose your job, your pension, and possibly your freedom. And if I do what you want? My attorneys will help your family. There is a flight at 9:40. A document appeared on Harold's phone. It was a sworn statement accepting sole responsibility for the altered records. It claimed Harold had confused two patient numbers, concealed the mistake, and later attempted to delete the archive out of panic. Julian's name appeared only once as a patient with no knowledge of the alteration. You already wrote this. I prepared for every possibility, including sacrificing him. At 5:42, Naomi received a system alert. Someone had activated the purge sequence through a remote administrative token. Priya Shah began locking accounts. The command is moving through mirrored folders, she said. If I shut down the archive, we may damage the active migration. Naomi called hospital counsel. Freeze it. We need executive authorization. You have mine. You are not the system owner. Naomi looked at the countdown. 18 minutes. Then record that I ordered the shutdown and that administration refused. Hospital counsel stopped arguing. Across town, Maya watched the deadline on Naomi's secure video call. Robert wanted an emergency injunction. Elena was tracking the sedan through traffic cameras available to her firm's investigator. A new email arrived from Blackwood Security. Maya was prohibited from entering the gala due to threats against Serena Vale and the unborn child. Attached was the edited video. Julian had turned the room he controlled into a boundary around the truth. Maya forwarded the notice to Conrad. His office replied that the evidence deadline remained 7:45, but all attendees were subject to security review. At 5:47, Edward Blackwood called Maya. You are pushing this beyond repair, he said. Your son rewrote my medical record to hide his own result. You have unverified data and a frightened employee. I have 6 years of treatment based on a false report. If you release Julian's condition, you will make yourself look cruel. I am not releasing his condition. Edward paused. I am releasing what he did to mine. That distinction left him with no clean defense. He changed tactics. Think about the child. That baby does not deserve to become evidence in a family war. Then tell Julian to stop calling the baby proof. Edward ended the call. At 5:51, Elena found the sedan entering a private garage owned by Blackwood Strategic Services. Naomi recognized the address. Priya traced the remote purge token to a tablet registered to the same company. The hospital now had a direct line between the deletion attempt and Blackwood infrastructure. Not yet Julian himself, but close enough to narrow the lie. At 5:54, Harold entered the garage alone. A disposal bin waited beside an industrial shredder. Julian's attorney had sent instructions for destroying electronic media. Harold placed the drive on the edge of the bin. His phone displayed the confession Julian expected him to sign. Below it was another file accidentally included in the same folder. Contingency Response H. Pike. Harold opened it. The document instructed Blackwood Counsel to deny all knowledge, portray Harold as a rogue employee, and cite his financial distress as motive. There was no flight, no protection, no help for his family. Julian had prepared to abandon him before asking for his loyalty. Harold took the drive back from the bin. At 5:57, he called Naomi. I have the missing archive, he said, and the statement Julian wanted me to sign. Naomi activated the call recorder. Where are you? Harold gave the address. Then a garage door opened behind him. He looked toward the headlights entering the building. It is not safe to talk. The call ended. At Street Catherine, the purge countdown reached 2 minutes. Priya entered the final shutdown command. The screen rejected it. Administrative authority had been restored from an external device. Maya watched the timer fall to 90 seconds. Julian had failed to buy her silence. Now he was trying to erase the part of the past that could speak without her. At 5:58 p.m., Priya Shah stopped waiting for permission. She pulled the migration controller from the network and forced the archive into read-only isolation. Warning lights flashed across 3 monitors. The active transfer froze at 87%. The purge timer stopped with 41 seconds remaining. Naomi exhaled once. Document every command. Rejected, override, and external token. Hospital counsel stared at the frozen screen. Administration will ask who authorized this. I did. Priya saved the final event log to 2 encrypted drives. At 5:59, Naomi called Maya. The archive is preserved. Is the evidence safe? The hospital copy is. Harold still has the missing export. A second line appeared on Naomi's phone. Harold had sent 3 files before his call ended. The unsigned confession Julian prepared for him, the contingency plan naming him as a rogue employee, and a photograph of the portable drive. The image contained location data. Naomi forwarded it to security and outside counsel. The image placed Harold inside a Blackwood-owned garage less than 20 minutes from the hospital. Harold may cooperate, she said. But we have not secured him or the drive yet. Maya looked at the clock. The first deadline had passed. The second had not. Across the city, Serena stood in the private dressing room Julian had arranged for her. A security guard waited outside. Julian had taken Serena's phone after the video of Maya began circulating. For your protection, he had said. Serena used Julian's tablet to check the schedule for her evening medication. A notification opened over the calendar. Contingency Response Parentage Challenge. If questions arose about the child's paternity, Blackwood Counsel would state that Julian had relied on Serena's assurances. Financial support would be suspended pending testing. Serena would be described as emotionally unstable and motivated by access to family wealth. Attached was a draft statement in Julian's name. I was deceived by someone I trusted. Another attachment listed details Serena had told him privately. The week she had seen her former boyfriend. Her uncertainty about the dates. And the debts she had never told anyone else. Julian had converted every confession into a weapon. At the bottom of the folder was an audio note recorded 2 days earlier. Serena pressed play. Edward's voice came first. What if the timing is challenged? Julian answered. After the vote, it does not matter. They only need to believe the child is mine until control transfers. Serena stopped the recording. She remembered asking Julian whether he wanted a paternity test before the announcement. He had said trust mattered more than biology. Now she understood. Usefulness mattered more than either. The guard knocked. Miss Vale? Mr. Blackwood wants you downstairs in 10 minutes. Serena copied the folder to a cloud account. Julian did not know she still had. She also photographed the file list, preserving the creation dates and Julian's username. Then she called Maya from the landline. Maya answered after 2 rings. This is Serena. Maya said nothing. I found a plan to blame me if anyone questions the baby. Maya's voice remained flat. Did you know the child might not be his? Serena looked at the gala photograph on the table. Julian's hand rested over her stomach, as if possession could create certainty. Yes. The admission left no room to hide. I saw someone else during a break. Julian knew. He said it did not matter. And you let him announce that baby as proof against me. Yes. Outside, the guard tried the handle. Serena lowered her voice. I believed what he said about you. That you refused treatment. That you used your diagnosis to keep him. I wanted that story to be true because it made what I did easier. Maya did not offer comfort. Why are you calling now? Because he has a statement ready to destroy me the same way he destroyed you. That explains why you are afraid. It does not explain why I should trust you. You should not. Verify what I send. Serena gave her the account and password. There is an audio file. He says they only need to believe the child is his until the vote. Maya opened the folder while Serena stayed on the line. Finally, Maya asked, "Will you say this in front of the trustees?" Serena pressed one hand against her stomach. "I will say what I knew, what I did, and what he told me. That will not erase what happened. I know. Do not come for forgiveness. I am not." The door opened. Julian stood there, smiling for the hallway cameras. "Who are you talking to?" Serena returned the receiver to its cradle. "No one you can use." She picked up the place card from the dressing table. "Mother of the Blackwood heir." Julian watched her turn it face down. At 6:07, hospital security and outside counsel reached the Blackwood garage. Harold surrendered the portable drive and agreed to give a recorded statement before Julian's attorneys could contact him again. Naomi authenticated the drive against the hospital checksum while counsel recorded Harold's account of the altered reports, the payment, and Julian's order to destroy the archive. At 6:14, Maya downloaded the audio, the contingency plan, and Serena's photographs. For 6 years, Julian had survived by making each woman believe the other was the problem. Now both of them had copies of the same lie. At 7:41 p.m. Maya reached the Blackwood ballroom through the service entrance. Security stopped her in the corridor. "You are not on the approved list." Naomi Bell stepped beside her with hospital counsel and a sealed evidence case. "She is here under a preservation and compliance matter." The guard touched his earpiece. Mr. Blackwood gave direct instructions. A voice answered behind them. "Then he can explain those instructions to me." Conrad Blackwood stood at the end of the corridor. He looked at Maya, then at Naomi's case. "You have until 7:45, he said. "After that, the trustees proceed." Inside, Julian was already addressing the board. "My wife has spent the last 24 hours harassing hospital staff, threatening a pregnant woman, and turning a private diagnosis into a weapon against this family." The edited gala clip played behind him. Maya's question appeared without the words that had preceded it. Security moved toward her. Serena held her stomach. Julian paused the video on Maya's face. "This is not an investigation. It is retaliation." Edward placed a hand on the trust documents. "We should vote before this personal dispute causes further harm." Conrad remained standing. "Maya has been given time to present authenticated evidence." Julian looked at Naomi's case. "Evidence collected by a hospital desperate to protect itself." Naomi replied, "The hospital opened its inquiry before litigation was threatened." Julian gave her a measured smile. "And now you intend to expose my medical information." Maya stepped forward. "I am not here to debate your diagnosis." His expression shifted. "I am here because you altered mine." Conrad ordered everyone to sit. Naomi placed the first document on the table. "This is the raw output from the laboratory analyzer used 6 years ago. The specimen numbers are tied to bar-coded samples collected under witness." The second document followed. At 11:43 p.m., both finalized reports were reopened under Harold Pike's credentials. The original interpretations were suppressed, key result fields were overwritten, and replacement PDFs were exported after multiple manual override warnings. Julian leaned back. A former employee made an error. Naomi placed an email beside the log. At 8:37 p.m., your executive assistant instructed the hospital to release both results directly to you and not contact Maya. My assistant managed private appointments. Before the physician had signed the reports, Julian did not answer. Robert Collins supplied the financial record. $25,000 had moved from Julian's dormant consulting company to Harold 3 days later. The invoice described records modernization services. "Harold never performed that work," Naomi said. Julian recovered. "You have a payment, a compromised employee, and old software. None of that proves I ordered an alteration." Maya opened the white settlement folder and placed the confidentiality agreement before Conrad. "This arrived before the hospital completed its review. It offered me a house, cash, and lifetime medical coverage if I agreed never to request, audit, or discuss fertility records created during the marriage. A divorce settlement protects privacy," Julian said. Maya pointed to the deadline. You gave me until 4:30. The hospital migration queue locked at 4. Several trustees began reading the clause. If you believed the records were accurate, Maya continued, why did you need me to stop asking before the archive changed? Julian turned to Conrad. She is treating routine legal language as guilt. Naomi opened the case again. At 5:40, 2 p.m., an external administrative token activated deletion of the same files. The token was tied to a tablet assigned to Julian's executive office. Someone acted without authority. Naomi played Harold's recorded statement. Julian told me to switch the files. He paid me. Today he told me to destroy the archive and sign a confession saying I acted alone. Julian stood. Harold Pike is a frightened criminal bargaining for protection. Naomi displayed the confession Julian had prepared. It named Harold as solely responsible and Julian as an uninformed patient. Julian looked toward Edward. Edward said nothing. For a moment, Julian had no defense left. Then he changed the argument. Even if mistakes were made, they concern a private marriage. They do not determine whether I can lead this family. Maya answered before Conrad could. Your condition was never the betrayal. What you did with mine was. Julian's face hardened. You want to humiliate me because Serena gave me what you could not. The side door opened. Serena entered without her place card. You should be resting, Julian said. I have rested enough while you spoke for me. She handed Conrad a file list, a statement, and her phone. I knew the child might not be Julian's. He knew, too. Edward rose halfway from his chair. Serena continued. I told him about the timing. I offered to wait for a paternity test. He said it did not matter until after the vote. You are confused, Julian said. Serena played the recording. Edward's voice came first. What if the timing is challenged? Then Julian answered. They only need to believe the child is mine until control transfers. Serena stopped the recording. You told me trust mattered more than biology. What you meant was that the baby only had to be useful. Julian turned on her. She lied to me. She admitted she was with another man. Serena placed the contingency plan on the table. You wrote that version before tonight. You planned to call me unstable and cut off support when I stopped helping you. Maya watched Julian search for another person to blame. Harold, Naomi, Serena, the hospital, Maya. Each explanation required someone else to carry what he had chosen. Conrad closed the trust documents. No vote will take place. Edward objected. Father, the succession nomination is withdrawn pending formal investigation. Julian's restraint broke. You are removing me because of a medical condition I did not choose. Conrad stood. No. That condition never disqualified you. He indicated the documents across the table. You altered your wife's record. You let her endure years of treatment under a false diagnosis. You paid an employee, tried to erase evidence, lied to the trustees, and used an unborn child to manufacture an image of succession. Julian looked around the table. No one defended him. Conrad removed Julian's nomination page from the packet. You thought this family needed your son. What it needed was a man we could trust. Maya did not smile or ask anyone to pity her. She gathered the old report, the unsigned settlement, and the place card she had carried back into the ballroom. The name on it was still folded through the middle. This time, she decided whether it belonged on the table. The investigation did not end when the trustees left the ballroom. By morning, Street Catherine had suspended Harold Pike and opened every fertility record he had touched during his tenure. Naomi Bell testified before an independent review panel and turned over the preserved server logs, the payment records, and Julian's deletion commands. Harold cooperated. Edward Blackwood resigned from the family trust after investigators confirmed that he had pressured the hospital to treat the matter as a private marital dispute. After the independent inquiry confirmed the fraud, the trustees permanently disqualified Julian from serving as successor trustee, controlling the family trust, or representing Blackwood Group in any fiduciary role. Julian did not lose everything in one dramatic night. He lost it in stages. First came the board suspension. Then the civil claims. Then the criminal inquiry into falsified medical records, obstruction, and destruction of evidence. Each filing carried dates, signatures, and access logs he could no longer explain away. Maya never released his diagnosis to the press. When reporters asked why, she gave the same answer. His condition was private. His actions were not. Serena moved out of the apartment Julian had arranged for her. She provided her messages and recordings to investigators, then stopped asking Maya to understand why she had believed him. Maya did not forgive her. Not yet, but she also refused to let Julian turn the child into another weapon. Questions of paternity, support, and custody were handled through lawyers and doctors, away from cameras and family speeches. For Maya, recovery moved more quietly. She returned to Dr. Hale and learned what 6 years of unnecessary treatment had changed and what it had not. She began therapy. She called friends she had avoided. She told her parents when she was angry instead of disappearing before they could see it. One afternoon, Helen brought Maya the old box of medication receipts. Maya kept the altered report and the audit record, then shredded the pages that had once taught her to measure every month as a failure. She did not decide immediately whether she still wanted to become a mother. For once, no one demanded an answer. 6 months later, Maya entered a state hearing on patient record protections. At the witness table, a clerk placed a name card in front of her. Maya Blackwood, patient representative. Maya looked at it for a moment. Then she uncapped a pen, crossed out the surname, and wrote beneath it in careful letters, Maya Collins, patient records advocate. The clerk apologized and offered to print another card. This one is fine, Maya said. She placed it upright before her. 6 years earlier, Julian had changed a name inside a medical file and taught Maya to doubt her own body. This time, before she took her seat, she checked every letter herself.